And welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast. This is your waiver edition for week number 4. I am your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my guy, Sean Koerner. Sean, happy birthday again, man. We got to hang out, and it was fun. I must say, you had me betting on skee ball in a bar, which I had never done before. So thank you.
Yeah, that was fun. And that the line I really sharked you was that 185. And my buddy Greg bowled a 180. So I won some pretty decent money off you on that. But yeah, I had fun. Thanks for coming out. Thanks again for the birthday wishes. Had a blast.
Yeah, there. And I guess before we should go on, not to start the show on a sad note, but I do want to say rest in peace to Mike Tagliere and just best wishes to his whole family. That was just a major loss and some news that was just kind of tragic to wake up to on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, he was just one of the best in the entire industry. Great off of podcasts too. I was pretty close with him. I'm in a dynasty league with him. Just very unfortunate. If you can, please donate to the GoFundMe. I retweeted it, so it's on my page, but try to find that and donate if you can.
Yeah, we'll put that link in the episode description. So again, just very unfortunate news. Just wanted to talk about that at the top. Hard to transition back, but let's start it out with the Fantasy Flex Week 4 waiver episode presented by PrizePicks with some talk about Sam Darnold, because we got to just talk about the Panthers. Let's get it all out of the way. Christian McCaffrey's hurt. He's going to be out. So let's just actually start with Chuba Hubbard, and then we'll talk about Sam Darnold as a streamer and do it that way. Sean, Hubbard played 55% of the snaps. So Royce Freeman's 15% against Houston. He had 14 touches to Freeman's 6. So the big question is, how much of your budget are you willing to spend on Chuba Hubbard while he's filling in for Christian McCaffrey over these next few weeks?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to the situation you're in. If you're 0-3 and are hurting at running back, I think I would bid potentially over 50% of my budget, especially if there aren't many running backs with this sort of upside, because he's really going to become that Mike Davis role we saw last year. I think he's going to be pretty solid RB2. The only concern really is his receiving usage. He dropped 2 balls already this season on 8 targets. So hopefully they don't, give Royce Freeman some of that work. So I think if you're 0-3 hurting at running back, you could use, probably a 3 to 4 week rental, if we're being honest. But if you're 3-0, you're solid at running back and you have no use for Hubbard for 3 games, just pass, let somebody invest heavily on him. So I think it depends on your situation, but he should be a pretty solid RB2 for a few games here.
Yeah. So I'd probably be even a little bit more conservative. I'd probably spend, 30, 35% tops. Obviously, yes, more if you're a losing team toward the high end of that. But I'm actually concerned that McCaffrey's not going to miss that much time, because Jason LaConfora reported that McCaffrey's dealing with lower than a grade 1 hamstring strain. They called it like a grade 0.5, which means it's a very mild hamstring strain. So I think people are going to kind of look at McCaffrey as this injury prone guy who missed a ton of games last year. And you're going to get that Mike Davis, FOMO. But last year, McCaffrey was dealing with an ankle. He was dealing with a shoulder. Those are like bone injuries. Now, soft tissue hamstrings, they do linger, but there's no guarantee that McCaffrey's going to miss the kind of time that he was missing last year. He hasn't been placed on IR, which means it might even be a shorter than the 3-week absence. Because if it was going to be a guaranteed 3-week absence, they would just go ahead and place him on IR. Now we're recording this Monday afternoon, so obviously things could change between now and even the time you guys hear this. But those are the reports that we're hearing right now: mild hamstring strain, no injured reserve designation for McCaffrey. So that's kind of what I'm tempering expectations on. I think they clearly want to use Hubbard in that Mike Davis role. They let Davis walk. They spent a 4th round draft pick on Hubbard, which is pretty significant for a running back, especially when you already have Christian McCaffrey. So I have no question that they're going to use him. I am kind of with you. I do worry a little bit in the back of my mind about some lapses. He had a couple of drops. Yeah, I believe he was credited with 3 drops in the preseason, and he had a fumble as well on not many targets. So it has been a little up and down. So that's kind of why I would say temper expectations. While he's on the field, he should be fine. He should give you like double Trey Sermon Like whatever Trey Sermon gave us yesterday, you should give us at least double that. But I'm just worried that McCaffrey won't be out for too long. All right, let's talk about Darnold now, because Darnold, lo and behold, is the QB 11 this season. He was the QB 5 last week, a couple rushing scores, and he's got a matchup coming up against Dallas in what should be a high scoring game. What do you think about Darnold as a streamer for this week, especially with McCaffrey out? Do you think that kind of makes them go a little more pass heavy? Is this like a Terrace Marshall eruption spot, just like, what do you think of Darnold if he's on the wire for people?
Yeah, I hope it's a Terrace Marshall eruption spot. And yeah, I think they're gonna be a little bit more pass heavy without CMC. And they breezed to this 3-0 record, so they will be more pass heavy when they get in a competitive game or a trailing game script even. So I think that's going to help even out some of the efficiency. I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be able to keep this up necessarily, but I think he's going to see an increase in usage going forward. I will say though, his fantasy points have been buoyed a bit by these 3 rushing scores. Now he could have easily maybe have thrown a touchdown instead, but still, I think, we want to be careful and being, overreacting too much to the first 3 games, but it does look like he's having a post Adam Gase breakout. So I would consider him, as a high end streamer for this week and going forward.
Sam Darnold is the leverage ad on Hubbard. Imagine he keeps vulturing touchdowns, and then when they do get a rushing touchdown, it'll be Giovanni Ricci, the fullback.
Oh God, don't put that into the world. But you're probably right. With Dan Arnold gone, they're gonna have Ian Thomas and Ricci running around. So yeah, it's maybe it is a Terrace Marshall breakout week. Now that I think about it. But yeah, I could definitely see that happening. But yeah, I think when it comes to just the streaming options, it's so crazy how the top 12 quarterbacks seem like the same guys every week. The QB1 tier is just entrenched right now. And then you kind of have these streamers that we can juggle every week based on the matchup. And then you have just the unplayable guys below that. So there's 3 massive tiers at quarterback right now. And it seems pretty rigid in that sense.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of these other quarterbacks, because now we're getting into the end of the first month of the season. We have at least 3 weeks of data. So we've seen about, 150, 200 plays from each of these teams. Kirk Cousins, QB4 this season, QB11 last week. Looks really good. Cleveland, the total's over 50. It's a 1-point spread. So this could be a very good game for fantasy purposes. But Cleveland did just completely eviscerate Justin Fields. So curious as to what you think about Cousins as a streamer. I'm sure he's still available in some leagues.
Yeah, like I said last week, he was one of the high-end streamers, in my opinion. He's going to be right in that QB 13, 14 range most weeks, and that's where I have him right now. He's my QB 14. The Vikings have been a bit pass heavy the past couple of games. They had all the defensive injuries in week 2. This week they were without Dalvin Cook. So, Cousins is always going to give a pretty high floor. He's going to have some spurts like this where he has, high-end quarterback 1 potential, but in the long run, he doesn't have that rushing upside. So we can't consider him a QB1 going forward. But again, I consider him the cream of the crop when it comes to this kind of streaming tier, this QB2 tier. So I think Cleveland probably, they look good, but that was mostly, Justin Fields and this offense is not being in sync quite yet. So it's tougher matchup, but I think Kirk Cousins can overcome it. And he's my QB 14 right now.
And speaking of Fields, what did you think of Fields? Because that was the game that I was the most wrong on. I felt like out of every game, I was overall, if you just took out, I had 3 bets on that game. I had a couple props. I had a bet on the Bears. I lost them all. If you took that out, I had a winning week. So I'm curious as to what you thought, because it did not look good. And it looked like a continuation of, kind of the underwhelming appearance he had the week before. And remember, this Cleveland defense, they were getting shredded by Tyrod Taylor, the week before. So I am officially worried about Fields. But what did you think?
Oh yeah, it was really bad. And, we were kind of joking about his prop was 204 passing yards. I thought that was way too low. We were projecting 240 to 250. It looks like we were wrong about that. This looks like it's going to take some time for it to work. We'll find out this week. If he starts this week against the Lions and he still looks that bad, then it's a concern. I just think he's probably holding on to the ball too long. He was able to get away with that Ohio State, and receivers were making 2 to 3 cuts and he's waiting for them to get open. He just doesn't have that kind of time in the NFL, and he's going to have to learn to get rid of it, throw into tight windows at times. But yeah, right now it's just really hard to trust him or even this offense. I was all excited about Darnell Mooney last week. Even Allen Robinson, we have to be concerned about right now because it did look that bad. But again, this is a get right spot against the Lions. So I think if he starts this week and he still looks this bad, then I'll be really concerned.
Yeah, I've tried to rectify this, but I've already bet the Lions.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, I to be fair, I got him at 6, which lasted for all of like 20 minutes, I feel like. Wow. And then I think the line is like 3.5 now, which I wouldn't touch. But yeah, I'm worried about Fields. I think you still want to hold him, but maybe even next week. I know Marquise Brown dropped like 100 yards worth of production against the Lions, but they generally look like a pretty well coached team. So I do worry a little bit about this Fields. This team, the Bears have put up 11 points per game of offense, because remember they got the defensive touchdown against Burrow. 11 points of offense in these 3 games. On average, 2 with Dalton, like a 1.5 with Dalton, 1.5 with Fields. So Cousins, guy like that, I'd probably start over him this week. Maybe even Darnold too. What about Derek Carr? What do we think of him? And I'll just lump in Carr and Peyton Barber, because Peyton Barber, I think you jokingly called him my favorite running back, but I would have preferred Kenyon Drake to kind of go crazy. I was not trying to invest in Peyton Barber, but he got 23 carries, 111 yards, and a touchdown. Also caught 3 balls for 31, played 57% of the snaps. And then Derek Carr, he's averaging like 380 yards passing. He's a QB8 this season. So what are your thoughts on this Raiders offense? I don't think we know if Jacobs is going to be back definitely by next week. So what are your thoughts on the Vegas Raiders?
Yeah, so Derek Carr is not going to be able to keep this up. He's thrown for over 380 yards in all 3 games. And I think that's been due to, their run game not being efficient this year. They were 31st in DVOA before this week. It probably went up, but still, they took a wrecking ball of the offensive line in the offseason. Richie Incognito's been out. Josh Jacobs has been out. So, I think they're going to remain a pass heavy team, which helps Derek Carr's floor, but I just don't see him having this high of ceiling every single game. It's going to have to come back down to earth. So, I'm not really investing in Peyton Barber at all, because like you said, Josh Jacobs might return this week. They don't play till Monday Night Football. So, he might be going out of that game, a true game time decision. You don't want to be relying on a guy like Peyton Barber anyway, but especially if, Josh Jacobs suits up, then he's unplayable. So I'm probably letting someone else bid on him this week, because like Kenyon Drake is still there. This is still a 2-way committee. And this week it could be a trailing game script against the Chargers, which will favor Kenyon Drake. So I'm not buying any Peyton Barber this week. Like I said, your favorite running back.
Okay, here's a thought. Here's a scary thought. You said Peyton Barber may be unplayable, right?
If Josh Jacobs plays, are you saying it's
listen to what I'm about to say?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Oh, no.
I just think back to the Raiders, and I think it was before Gruden got there. So maybe when did Gruden get there? 2018 or 19?
I think it's 2018.
Oh, so what? Yeah. Okay. So remember the first year Gruden was there, they had Marshawn Lynch, Jalen Richard, and Doug Martin, because Gruden loves these like old washed up veteran, kind of like middling veteran plotting non-pass catching guys like Peyton Barber. And so like Doug Martin was getting like 4, 5, 7 carries with Lynch as like the lead back and Richard as a third down back. So, I mean, this 100-yard game for Barber came at like an inopportune time, especially with Jacobs being banged up. Like I do worry that Jacobs usage goes down, because I didn't think it was going to go down just due to Drake. I thought he was still going to get his 15, 20 carries a game. Drake will play in the passing game, but now we're seeing Barber get that role, but Gruden just loves guys like Barber. So, I mean, if you have Josh Jacobs right now, like, would you consider selling him right now? Like, do you think his value will ever be higher?
Yeah,
this
that's a
season.
good point. I mean, you're not really selling high at this point, but you're getting out of it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I can see that. And if it's a three-way committee, let's face it, Peyton Barber is going to be unplayable. But your point is they all three might be unplayable.
Yeah.
And it could depend on game script. Like, God, yeah, no, I think Josh Jacobs would be trapped. Like,
Yeah.
he would be really hard to trust any given week. So yeah, I would consider it. I would definitely consider it.
Like, yeah, because it seems like you'd be selling low, but there's a chance that he just never kind of recovers that value. So just putting that out there into the atmosphere. Let's talk about real quick Taylor Heinecke. Any love for him going against Atlanta this week?
Yeah, no, he's looked pretty good in terms of fantasy anyways. During these two tougher matchups against the Giants and Bills. And then this week he has a plus matchup against the Falcons. So I would consider him sort of that high-end streamer, tier right now. He has that rushing upside we love. He has, Terry McLaurin. He might get Curtis Samuel back this week. If not this week, next week. So I'm okay investing in Tyler Heinecke. If you're hurting at quarterback, he has that upside we love. So in a matchup like this, he could be absolutely playable.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about some more running backs here. James White goes down for New England. Is there anyone we want in his backfield, or is it just the Damian Harris show?
Well, it's the Damian Harris show, but I think JJ Taylor is worth a fly right now. I would consider him. Well, I would consider Stevenson to be, Damian Harris's true backup, and JJ Taylor is probably James White's backup. And that's certainly a role we want to invest in with Mac Jones under center. I mean, he's dumping it off to the running back quite a bit. There's no more Rex Burkhead. So, JJ Taylor might dominate this passing work. So I think he's worth a flyer. And Brandon Bolden filled in a bit last week. That was probably just because the injury happened in game. I don't think he'll be part of the game plan going into next week. With Bill Belichick, we never know. But JJ Taylor is certainly worth a flyer, especially if, Stevenson and Harris, they keep up these fumbling issues. He could end up being the workhorse back. So that's why I always like investing in these like third string running backs on the Patriots, because they always have that RB2 upside. If all these backs start ending up in the doghouse, JJ Taylor could emerge as an RB2.
Speaking of third string backs and the Patriots, Tom Brady dumped it off to Gio Bernard 10 times last week. Gio caught 9 balls for 51 and a touchdown. He still doesn't have a carry this year, though. I'm sure he's on most people's wires, and they're going to see that big game. Is he worth picking up, or is that just kind of an outlier? Because like one of the few times the Bucks are going to be in a losing script this year.
That's what I was going to say. It's going to be rare that the Bucks get into a trailing game script like that. So I wouldn't buy into it. And I think he got hurt at the very end of the game. So I'd look out for that. We love Gio Bernard on the fantasy flex, but I am not buying into him right now.
Somehow he was the second Giovanni mentioned on this podcast, though.
Oh, true.
Giovanni Ricci got the nod, but I guess we didn't even plan to discuss this, but I do have to ask: Ronald Jones, drop him? 4 carries, 6 carries, 5 carries.
First of all, I don't even know why you drafted him. Remember, I said, why the hell is his ADP RB30? So if you've been listening to this pod, hopefully you just don't have him. But if you do, and there's like anybody out there that's playable, drop him. Although I will say, his appeal is if Leonard Fournette goes down, I mean, he could be an RB2, but he just doesn't have enough upside to even stash on your bench right now, in my opinion.
Played 9% of the snaps in week 1, jumped to 41% in week 2, which is still not great. And then down to 16% last week when Arians kind of told us, he was like, Fournette's going to start. I was able to get the Jones prop at 28.5 rushing yards. So that, and he still hasn't hit that in any game this season. So yeah, it's looking ugly. This is brutal. This is not a good situation. Who else we got to talk about here? Thoughts on this Atlanta situation? Mike Davis, I mean, he did get 16 touches. He got 70 yards. So he didn't get a touchdown, but on the surface, his numbers look decent. He played 60% of the snaps, but Cordell Patterson outperformed him again on 42% of the snaps and 3 fewer touches. Patterson got 22 more yards. He had 13 touches for 92 yards. Is Mike Davis like going to lose his job?
I don't think he's going to lose his job. And, I think that normally if we knew the Falcons were in a two-way committee at running back, we would want nothing to do with it. But they've been more run heavy under Arthur Smith. They had the 9th highest run rate in neutral situations right now on early down. So I think there's potential here for Mike Davis to be sort of the workhorse back. Obviously, he doesn't have much upside, like a low end RB2 kind of flex play. Whereas Cordell Patterson, you know, he has this pass catching role. They don't have Julio anymore, obviously. They didn't have Russell Gage. So there's a role for him in this offense. So I think both running backs can be playable in deeper leagues. Would you say that Patterson could be this year's JD McKissick? Just, you know, a guy that's kind of a lock for 4 to 5 catches every week, give you a high floor.
Yeah.
Kind of playing
absolutely.
PPR. Like that's what he's shaping out to be.
Absolutely. But I just have this feeling in the back of my head that there's going to be a week sooner or later when he gets more touches than Mike Davis. And it's going to be like carries, not just catches, just because he's been playing well. And Davis was in the Christian McCaffrey role last year. So that, and like, he wasn't overly efficient. But he ran hard. He looked good. Coaches love him. But it just, I don't know. It just worries me every time Patterson keeps putting up these good games because Davis hasn't really done much. So I'm another guy that I might try to get out of while I still can in Mike Davis, you know, just kind of it's getting to that time of year. What did you think of Trey Sermon in that San Francisco backfield? I've just decided that Kyle Shanahan hates his entire team. Like he doesn't trust Jimmy Garoppolo in the red zone. He doesn't trust Trey Sermon because he gave Juszczyk like 5 carries, and there was 21 carries, and Sermon got 10 of them. Like Glantz got one, Kittle got one. Like it seemed like he was devising every way not to give Trey Sermon like 15, 20 carries. And then he obviously hates Brandon Ayuk. So Kyle Shanahan just hates his own team. But what did you think of Sermon? I thought he kind of got bailed out by the touchdown. Yeah. Just 10 of the 21 carries, only 31 yards. Didn't look too great.
Yeah, no, I agree. He definitely bailed those of us that played him out with that touchdown. And, you know, he really ramped up Kyle Juszczyk's usage.
Oh, my goodness.
So
69%. Oh, by the way, guess how many percentage of snaps Kyle Juszczyk played?
69%.
69%.
Nice.
10 more percent than Trey Sermon.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, this is the week to play Trey Sermon. And now, you know, I'm worried we're going to have to kind of see how this shakes out if and when Elijah Mitchell comes back, which I think could be this week. So it was a very concerning game considering Trey Sermon had like no competition outside of Kyle Juszczyk. And yeah, he didn't look good. He had that one play where he fell backwards and lost like 10 yards or something. Like it was not pretty. So maybe there is a reason he was in the doghouse. So this, I will stand pat saying we need to invest in these 49er running backs, but right now it's dicey. Let's kind of wait and see how this shakes out this week before we play him again.
Yeah, and even though it's like a home favorite spot this week for Sermon, which we love for running backs, I wouldn't take that. I would take that with kind of a grain of salt. Russell Wilson is 65%, you know, coming off a loss. He's 65% as a road dog. I fully expect that Seattle could have just as much of a chance to win this game. And they're the more desperate team. So this could be like another ugly game script for Sermon. I wouldn't just kind of blindly say, okay, you know, home favorite, high total, play him. Definitely kind of exercising some caution with him. Zach Moss obviously needs to be rostered. If he was dropped, he played 57% of the snaps, got 16 touches, and they have another game script where that could happen this week because they go against Houston. The Jets play the Titans, who are on paper, their defense is not great. Ty Johnson, 57% of the snaps, Carter, 43%. Any thoughts on like, are these guys going to be usable at all against a bad defense, or is it still just a stay away?
It's a stay away. This backfield is an absolute disaster right now. I mean, the Jets have scored 20 points on the season. Usually we want to invest in running backs on teams that can drive downfield and score points.
Right.
They do neither. And, you know, Mekhi Becton's still out, so this offensive line's brutal. I will say, though, Michael Carter is starting to look like the workhorse back. You know, Tevin Coleman had 0 touches. LaMichael Pirine and Josh
Tevin Coleman
Adams.
Tevin Coleman was out.
Yeah, no, he had 0. I'm saying he survived.
I mean, I had 0 touches too.
Heading into the season, they had these 5 running backs, right?
Yeah.
So Tevin Coleman's out. He's out of the picture. Like, let's just say that. Josh Adams, LaMichael Pirine, even Ty Johnson out snapped Michael Carter.
Yeah.
But Carter's still out touching him by 7 touches. So I'm just saying we kind of called this, right? That Michael Carter, keep him on your bench if you have him. Like, he's going to emerge as the workhorse back. We've seen that happen. We just need this offense to do something now. So that's why I think you can still roster him and only him right now.
Okay. Do we have anything on the AJ Brown injury? I know he left the game early. Julio Jones, I saw only played like 55% of the snaps in that game too. I know it was kind of the Titans were controlling it, but
Yeah.
what do people do if AJ Brown's out this week? Is there anyone kind of you're thinking you would target or?
Well, we don't know if he's going to be out. I think they might be cautious just considering they're playing the train wreck that is the Jets right now. So this could be a Derrick Henry 50 carry game. And Julio did look banged up, but I would assume he would step up in the spot. Anthony Firkser might return and could see, 3+ catches. Nick Westbrook would be the sneaky PPR flyer that we might talk about tomorrow on the DFS show. But other than that, I think they're going to just kind of be careful with them because they're playing the Jets and just feed Derrick Henry. Why not in a game like this?
So if there's a guy like DeSean Jackson on the wires, like is he worth rostering at this point? You think? Like, we heard Sean McVay saying, "Hey, I need to get him more involved." Had 3 catches on 5 targets, 120 yards and a touchdown. Out of all the guys that kind of popped last week, I mean, there's a lot of deep receivers like Valdez-Scantling got a deep ball and he also scored a touchdown. Would Jackson be the priority ad, or is it more like a guy like Hunter Renfrow, who's I'm sure still available in a lot of spots, and he's kind of looking like a week in, week out target for Derek Carr?
Yeah, you kind of called it after, I think it was week 1 or week 2, like, where the hell's our DeSean Jackson 2 catch, 100-yard, 1 touchdown game? I mean, they might as well use him in this role while he's healthy. It gives him that vertical element. And, you saw Sean McVay run down the field, and he was the first person to congratulate DeSean Jackson after that. So I think he's going to keep him in there going forward. So I would say, if you're a big underdog going into a matchup, DeSean Jackson is the kind of guy you want on your team. You want that super high ceiling at the expense of a potentially low floor. So I would add him if your team's struggling, you're an underdog this week. He's the perfect kind of guy in that role. Whereas Hunter Renfrow, he's going to provide a high floor, maybe not the same ceiling as DeSean Jackson. So if you're a big favorite this week and you just need a guy to get you a handful of points, go with Hunter Renfrow, where, D-Jax, he's always going to be that home run threat when he's healthy. So yeah, I think he's worth an ad right now.
Wanted to get your thoughts on the Cardinals too a little bit. AJ Green, 86% of the routes, Christian Kirk, 73%, Rondale Moore down to 38%. Is this a situation where, because Green and Kirk both had 100-yard games, where are we on Moore? Like, where do you kind of see Moore being ranked in your weekly rankings going forward? Because I had him higher than both of those guys, and he made me look stupid. So I'm just curious as to kind of what you're seeing for Moore going forward.
I mean, let's face it, this is just going to be a tricky team to project right now, especially with Hopkins sort of playing the decoy role. I mentioned last week in my tiers that he was a potential sell high option. I still think he's going to be the alpha in this offense, but you called it, like, these ancillary receivers are stepping up. So AJ Green had a big game. Christian Kirk has looked really good this year.
Yeah, he's played well.
So yeah, and then we're going to have Rondale Moore to have these like blow up games too, where he has a low floor also. So I just think it's going to come at the expense of Hopkins. He's sort of drawing the attention of the defense. He's playing at less than 100%. So this week facing the Rams, he's probably going to draw Jalen Ramsey most of the game, opening up the field for these other 3 receivers. So it's going to be very tricky to just rank these guys. And right now I have DeAndre Hopkins as my wide receiver 17. Where do you have him?
I have not done my projections
Where
yet,
do you think you're going to rank him this week?
Probably higher than that. Just
okay.
I just feel like going again, like, the Rams aren't shadowing. Like, they're not shadowing. So because remember, Jalen Ramsey's like in that star position now. They're using him a lot closer to the line of scrimmage. I even heard Troy Aikman say on the telecast in the Bucks Rams game that he was like, yeah, Mike Evans has been out there. Jalen Ramsey really hasn't been on him. So I'm not that worried. And I just think at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want to bet against DeAndre Hopkins. Like, that's just not the type of guy that I want to bet against because, yeah, he was banged up this week. They're playing the Jaguars. You know, two guys had 100 yards. He didn't really need to do much, but their two most talented receivers both had bad games. So, like the way I see it is like that's going to rebound, and it might start this week because they're going to need production out of Hopkins this week. So I'm not going to overreact yet. You know, if we see that kind of a trend, you know, a couple weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, and more is kind of, you know, ascending, then and these guys are playing well, then you have more options then I think. But right now, I just think you know, they have 4 guys, so and 2 of them had 100 yards. So it's just, and you're playing a team that didn't really make you pass. So
yeah,
you know, I'm not going to overreact.
I wouldn't bet against him long term, but I doubt he's going to be in your top 8 this week. Like he's probably outside of the top 8 by now.
Just because there's I mean, there's so many good receivers in the league. I mean, I might have to have both Vikings in my top 8, both Seahawks. So yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. Both and, Cowboys.
Well, let's face it, Cooper Kupp is number 1.
Oh my goodness, Cooper Kupp.
You can't. We made a pact last week not to rank him outside of the top 3. We weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah,
we might need to narrow that to like top 1. 2. Top 1. Okay.
Him and Devontae. like Tyreek is having one of those, you know, the volatility. Patrick Mahomes is making some uncharacteristic mistakes. Yeah, like I mean, Devontae had a really good matchup last week. So I mean, you know, against the Niners, like their cornerback situation, and they're putting him in a slot. So I mean, Devontae might have to be the wide receiver 1 from now on, and Kupp the wide receiver 2, and then it's like a toss up from there.
Yeah,
and like Tyreek is not even in that conversation anymore. So. But that's just I haven't put the numbers to it just yet, but that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Okay, let's quickly, you know, Giants injuries. Shepard went down, Slayton went down. I don't know if we've seen any updates yet, but that's it. Is Kenny Golladay kind of sneak back into startability? Evan Ingram, any interest against the Saints here, who have a really good defense by the looks of it yet again?
Yeah, it's just a shame that it seems like Daniel Jones can never have all of his pass catchers healthy. I mean, he finally got Barkley closer to 100% and Evan Ingram returned, and then he just lost Shepard and Slayton. Slayton's probably not that big of a deal, but I do think that maybe Kenny Golladay is a high-end wide receiver 3 now. I'll have to update my projections, but I've been calling for Golladay to be kind of like a buy low option. It's too early to know who's out right now, but if both Shepard and Slayton are out, I think Colin Johnson might be an interesting flyer. He's 6'6", 220. He could be a good red zone target if, you know, they're double teaming Golladay or whatever. Colin Johnson could be sneaky. I was surprised when the Jaguars cut him. I thought he had some potential going in the season. So just keep him on your radar if both of these receivers are out. Other than that, we're only really interested in Golladay and Barkley right now in this offense anyway. But monitor the situation this week.
So you would add Johnson over a guy like Kadarius Toney?
Oh yeah, no, I don't think Tony's ready. He's more of a gadget player that I don't think Jason Garrett's figured out quite yet to use. I wouldn't consider him a guy that I would stash right now. Like I said, I think Colin Johnson just has that massive frame where he could be the red zone target. I think he's the ad out of anybody on the Giants team right now.
And then so the Steelers, you know, Deontay missed the game. Juju went down. They play the Packers this week, so that's going to be a tough matchup for if Chase Claypool is the last guy standing. That's going to be a tough matchup for him against Jair Alexander. We don't know yet if Deontay is going to be back. I would assume Jair would be on Deontay more if that were the case. But any interest in anybody on the Steelers pass catching core? I mean, they're having to throw a ton just because they're not very good. So. There's got to be some value there somewhere, but I'm having a hard time because Freiermuth only played about a third of the snaps a week after kind of splitting work and overtaking Ebron. James Washington's obviously still there, but any thoughts on the Steelers pass catching corps?
Yeah, I think you got to fire up Chase Claypool. Even if he does see a lot of Jair Alexander here, I think they're going to force the issue with him. And James Washington, I think, is playable in deeper leagues, but he didn't show much this week. And Freiermuth, you know, his routes run dipped down to 33%, but he's still, you know, posted 3 catches, 22 yards and a touchdown. So while the playing time's down, it is encouraging that he's seeing so much volume in his limited playing time. So if that flips, he could be on our tight end radar, probably not quite yet, but Eric Ebron, he just looks done. You know, he was on the field 60% of the time, failed to catch a pass. So I think Freiermuth's stock is heading up. And like I said last week, I think we both took the under Najee Harris rushing yards. I just said, I just don't know how they're going to run the ball. If anything, they're going to get more, involved in the passing game. I did not expect 14 catches. So, man, just going to be a check down machine right now. It seems like, because that's the only way they can kind of run the ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if he sees an increase. Well, not an increase from last week, but he's a 4 to 5 catch back going forward. I think that usage is going to be pretty sticky with him going forward.
He can be like an inefficient running version of Alvin Kamara.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's 12 carries for 40 yards or 30 yards or 20 yards, but 8 catches,
that should be a prop this week. Will anybody outside of Najee Harris or Big Ben, I guess, get a rush attempt this week?
Because Snell's there.
No is minus 400. What would you put the line at?
I would put it at lower than that because Pittsburgh may get blown out by the Pack. They're playing Aaron Rodgers. That might not be messing around. So I mean, as bad as Pittsburgh just lost to Cincinnati at home, I know Cincinnati's better, and I've been saying this. Their defense is a lot better than people think, but that they still lost to Cincinnati at home and look completely terrible doing it. So yeah, I'm officially worried about Pittsburgh. And I forgot to mention this with San Francisco, but Brandon Ayuk startable again. He played 86% of the snaps, 4 catches, 37 yards, a touchdown. Also returning punts, which gives him a little extra upside. I
mean, he's probably not who we drafted him quite yet. I mean, he was drafted as a high-end wide receiver too, right? Or a mid-low range. He's not there yet, but I think he's on the wide receiver 3 flex spectrum right now. It was encouraging to see. But the production hasn't been there quite yet. I think it could be another couple weeks before, we're considering him a wide receiver 3, but he's a guy I think you still kind of want to buy low on. I think he is going to be the alpha in this offense at some point again. But yeah, he's not meeting his ADP expectations quite yet, but I think he's getting there.
Yeah. And he'll get to see, he'll get snaps on Trey Flowers this week. So, that'll be good for him. Justin Jefferson had a really good game. Both, the Seahawks are going to give up production to wide receivers. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a week where I'm probably I'd at least flex him if he's not like a straight up wide receiver 3 in the rankings. A couple more guys I want to get to at tight end. Mike Gesicki, we both kind of wrote him off as like unplayable, but then he goes out and has a 10 catch game. So he played 72% of the routes per dropback. Pretty decent number for tight ends. Indianapolis kind of middle of the pack. Their defense hasn't been nearly as good as it was last year. So is Gesicki back on the streaming radar at least? DFS, tournament radar?
I'm not buying in quite yet. I mean, he's a very talented pass catching tight end. Just the issue with the Dolphins is they have so many pass catchers with not enough, yards or targets to go around. I mean, we saw Jalen Waddle catch 12 balls last week. So there's going to be games where Parker steps up, where Will Fuller steps up. He's just going to be too inconsistent. But then again, we are talking about streaming tight ends, which, they're probably going to be inconsistent anyway. So just the fact that Gesicki does have 10 catch upside, if you're hurting at tight end, sure, he's worth a flyer, but I just wouldn't expect this week to week with him. Like I said, just these pass catchers week to week, they're very tricky to project. So I think, we're going to have 2 guys every week kind of go off, and then 2 guys kind of take a back seat. So just plan accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, that's if Will Fuller, I think he got hurt on like the
very last play.
Yeah, trying to catch a touchdown, which is that's so Will Fuller. I think he tore his ACL on a touchdown catch a couple years ago, actually, on against Miami. Come to think of it.
Wow.
So yeah, that's everything comes full circle for Will Fuller. So yeah, I guess that was going to kind of be my question. Somebody's out there, they're not getting enough from their tight end. The guys who kind of popped this week were Gesicki, Dawson Knox, which you called, I believe, on one of our podcasts. It was a great call. He ran 77% of the routes, and he was the tight end 3 last week. A very low scoring week for tight ends, but tight end 3 is tight end 3. Houston is 28th against tight ends. Now the one concern is the game script might be one of those things where they don't need to throw to the 4th or 5th option much. But you're kind of looking at Gesicki, you're looking at Knox. Maybe you're looking at Tyler Conklin, 7 catches, 70 yards. The overall tight end 1 in week 3 in that game against Cleveland. Any lean to where any one of those guys in particular?
Wait, so Dawson Knox was tight end 3 last week with 4 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown. That's all it took?
Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, Dalton Schultz, and Blake Jarwin haven't played yet, but as of now, yes.
I doubt any of them. I guess one of them could beat that line, huh? So yeah,
all 4 of them.
I didn't even realize it was that bad of a week at tight end.
Yeah, it was a bad.
Smokes.
I mean, TJ Hawkinson did nothing. You had Andrews go off. I think Kittle had a decent week, Kelsey, but that was like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Waller struggled surprisingly. Yep. But yeah, Knox, he was my cheat code last week because I said if he's able to maintain this sort of usage on a passing team like the Bills, we're going to be very interested in him. And so he's getting this playing time in expense of Gabe Davis. You know, you kind of said last week that they're playing more 11 personnel. So
they're just better in that formation, I guess.
Yeah. So this is a 2-week trend now. So we're very interested in Dawson Knox. So I think he's playable this week. His ceiling is probably, everybody's ceiling is probably capped against the Texans. This is going to be a blowout most likely. So that does cap his upside here. But again, we're talking about the tight end streaming tier, which is just a shit show. So I think he's worth a flyer. Conklin, probably not so much. I think we're going to see, him and KJ Osborne sort of rotate who the number 3 target is week to week. This week it was Conklin. Next week it might be Osborne. So I think Conklin's probably going to be a little bit too inconsistent to trust going forward.
All right. I'll end it with this little pop quiz for you. So, Conklin, tight end 1, Kelsey, Gesicki, Kittle, Mark Andrews, Knox was he was actually the tight end 6. I said 3. He was tight end 6. Sorry. Higbee and Logan Thomas. Those are the top 8. Guess who was the tight end 9 this week so far? Without
Jacob Hollister.
Ooh, that was a good guess.
I know he played passes for 60. What did he do?
He played a bunch of snaps, but no, it was Tommy Tremble.
Oh yeah, because he got that touchdown.
Yeah.
Hey, is he going to be the guy to pick up now that they got rid of your boy Dan Arnold? Or is Ian Thomas? Like, who do you think is going to be the leading tight end now in that offense? Like, it's going to be a nightmare to project. I don't even want to think about it. Forget I asked.
I wouldn't say. I would say it might be, because the thing about Ian Thomas is he's like the Andre Patton or like of tight ends. Like he just wins. He's just out there running routes and he just doesn't get targeted.
That's why I'm thinking that this could be the window for Terrence Marshall to break out. He would be sort of the Curtis Samuel role from last year where Ian Thomas is running 80% of the routes and he sees one target. Christian McCaffrey's out. So yeah, I'm starting to think this might be the week that Terrence Marshall blows up.
How do you feel about that trade? I hate it for the Jaguars. Why give up on Henderson already? First of all, the Panthers
give Tim Tebow another chance.
Oh my goodness. And we know we're Dan Arnold fans on this podcast, but is Dan Arnold, is there really a difference between like Dan Arnold and Jacob Hollister?
No,
and James O'Shaughnessy and whoever they could. Come on, man.
Arnold's not playing this week, right?
I don't know.
They play Thursday. They play Thursday night football. So I think Jacob Hollister might be a sneaky play in DFS. I'm hoping Arnold doesn't suit up, but they were going to get James O'Shaughnessy back in a couple weeks anyway. Why are we even talking about this? It was a dumb trade.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason for
it. Urban Meyer.
None.
0-3
yeah,
against
you're
the
right.
spread. 0-3 against the spread. Still hasn't
covered. I feel bad for Stuckey. For taking. I mean, you had to play him this week, but I'm with you. I am not betting on them until I see some.
You didn't have to play them. Why does everyone keep saying that? You didn't. You didn't have to bet on the Jaguars. Like no one put a gun to your head and said like you could not bet the game. And it's like even if you're picking in a contest, so like you have to pick every game anyway. Every game only counts. Like 10%, 8%. Why would you pick Urban Meyer? Like there's no reason to bet on Urban Meyer right now.
How
none.
Forget about Urban Meyer for a second. How concerned are you with Trevor Lawrence so far?
Oh, I mean, that's going to be too long of a podcast, but I would say I am concerned only because of Urban Meyer, because I am confident that they are not developing him based on the other decisions that Urban Meyer has made since taking over this franchise, and based on the control that he has of this franchise, I'm pretty convinced that he's just not built for this, at least, or he's not good at this right now. And I don't know how long it's going to take. And in the NFL, you don't get time like that. And they always say, hey, quarterbacks, you could get bad habits. You can, that's why they're Shanahan is, even though it's probably not the best idea, he's sitting Trey Lance. That's why Matt Nagy wanted to sit Justin Fields. We're seeing some of that. So it's like the fact that they're throwing Lawrence into the fire, but in this type of environment, and they're just acquiring all these random veteran guys and trading away promising young cornerbacks, like, which you're just hurting the defense, really. Like, there's just nothing about this says like we're giving this guy the best chance to succeed. So I am actually worried. What do you think?
He's looked really bad, and that interception he threw early in the game is really bad. Marvin Jones, he stopped kind of in the soft spot of the defense, and then Trevor Lawrence led him, threw it right to the guy. Josh Hermsmeyer, I love this tweet from last week. The highest off-target throw rate in the NFL through 2 weeks of play since 2009. Trevor Lawrence is number one, 35% off-target throw rate. I need to look and see how he did this week. Number two is Tim Tebow at 34.4%. And number three was Seneca Wallace at 34.5%. That's not Urban Meyer's fault. That's Trevor Lawrence's fault. So that's not good. I still think he's a generational talent, but yeah, maybe with the coaching, just he's not ready. It's been very concerning, to say the least.
Well, the thing about it is Urban Meyer reportedly has been like a dick to his other coaches. So like, that's why I worry, because it's like, it's not the head coach's job to coach Trevor Lawrence, but it is the quarterback coach's job. It is the offensive coordinator's job. And if they're stressed out and they hate their jobs, and then that extends to the locker room where a guy like Marvin Jones, he could, he's a veteran. He's been there, done that, proved himself. He might stop giving a fuck. You know what I mean? And it's like, then you're trading away these young guys. Like, it's like,
it's a disaster. Hopefully they fire him. Hopefully they just fire Meyer and he coaches USC. I would love to see that.
First at plus 5,000. But yeah. No, the only thing I'll say in fairness is all the rookie quarterbacks have, save for Trey Lance and Mac Jones at times, but they've all looked pretty bad. So
yep,
it's gonna do it. That is gonna do it. We just way too much Jaguars talk. Our producer Matt Mitchell is probably gonna cut half of it, but either way, it was a great pod. Sean, you can find him on Twitter at @the_oddsmaker. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Raybon. You can find us both at those same handles in the award-winning free Action Network app, where you can follow our bets or track all of yours for free. Be sure to check out actionnetwork.com for our fantasy projections and rankings and our tool and all of our content. And check out FantasyLabs.com for our DFS tools and content as well. And until next time, let's get this money.